On Thursday, His Excellency President Irfan Ali announced that government would be paying out an across-the-board 8% in a salary for public servants. Welcome to this special discussion. I'm Anadia, and I am joined by Minister of Public Works, the Honorable Bishop Juan Edghill, along with Minister of Public Service, the Honorable Sonia Parag. Good evening and welcome, Ministers.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for joining me. In light of the constant rise in prices and cost of living globally, the 8% increase that has been announced, in your estimation, in government's assessment, how far will this go in terms of the economic abilities of our public servants?
Well, the announcement, first of all, let me just state from the onset that we are grateful to public servants. We thank them for serving us every day. And His Excellency made quite an important and timely announcement last night, not only in relation to the 8% increase across the board for the public sector, that is inclusive of traditional and non-traditional public servant posts, positions in the public sector, but also the adjustment of scales relating to specific categories of workers, especially in the healthcare system, as well as the prison service and the fire service and other positions. And so we have to take a holistic view of that. And the 8% across the board. Now, this is not just a specific category or a specific scale that's being increased, but it's all employees, and you're talking about over 40-something thousand to 50-something thousand employees across the public sector. So it's timely, it's critical, and public servants as well as the rest of the public sector, they're looking forward to this.
Minister Edghill?
Well, there is a great sense of joy, satisfaction. People have greeted this with a sense of, we anticipated something good, we got something good. In the run-up to that announcement, at most of my public engagements, the teasing question from persons, whether it's the police, the military, the public servant, or the teachers, how much we are getting. It was not if we are getting. The question was how much we are getting. Because you can see historically, since the PPPC came to office 1992 with the restoration of democracy, free and fair elections, there was consistent effort to improve the life and livelihood of public servants. That improvement has been incremental year by year. During the difficult periods of the world's worst oil crisis and food crisis, in the 2000 period, public servants benefited. We came back into government in 2020 in an environment of COVID, which was no small problem. It was a global pandemic. As a result of COVID, we ended up having difficulties with supply chain, logistics, shipping. Cost of shipping escalated. Scarcity and cost of living went up. In Guyana, 4 floods. 4 floods between 2020, when we took office, and now. But in the midst of that, the government would have been making several interventions. So this 8% across the board increase is not the only thing that government would have done for public servants. Let me just remind, And sometimes people need to hear it. The price of fuel went up in the world market. So obviously, the price for the production of electricity would have gone up. So everybody in Guyana should have been paying bigger light bills or higher light bills, higher water bills. Every public servant would have been paying more money to GPL or GWI. You know what the government did? Stepped in and said to GPL and GWI, you're only allowed to bill at the rate before this escalation of prices. The government will provide the rest. So you're getting 8% salary increase, but the government, since early this year, has been subsidizing your light bill and your water bill. And that's every public servant. That's every household across the length and breadth of this country. So President Ali last night, in his announcement, he placed it in a particular context of what government would have been doing. And it is not just about the 8%, but this is an installment. This is another measure among the multitude of things that would have been done. Stabilize the economy, safeguard people's lives, ensure everybody's eating, ensure that the market is adequate, we have adequate supply, keep cost. We've taken off all of the taxes off of fuel. So government is not collecting any revenue on gasoline and so on. It's gone to zero. That is money that the public servant would have had to pay extra for fuel. But the government forgoes that revenue to allow for the benefit to be passed on to the individual. So public servants were expecting a salary increase, and between last night and today, those that I've publicly interacted with, they shared a similar smile that you're wearing right now, and some much more jubilant because they've already done the calculations.
They have.
And once you calculate the money, you've already spent it too. So they are sure about what they'll be doing with it for the Christmas holidays or the end of year, because it's retroactive to January 1st. So you're getting the payout for the entire 2022, and your salary beginning at December is at a new adjusted rate, and it goes over to January 2023. So it's just good news, and sometimes people take these things for granted. We should not take these things for granted, because there's a whole lot that needs to be done, and you have to weigh what is happening in a context of what is happening globally. We had a situation around the world where people, in order to keep their jobs, were taking salary cuts, foregoing incentives, just to ensure that their companies or who they're working for remain viable and they could remain meaningfully employed. So we take management of the economy very, very seriously. When we do things, they are calculated. It must be sustainable, and we must ensure that the benefit gets down to the ordinary man. And you know, it's one thing to pay out money, but we also have to keep the inflation rate within context, so that that money that is being paid out has real value. And when you look and you see how government would have managed the economy, keeping inflation in check, the 8% that will be paid out is bringing real value. It's not just paper in your hands that will disappear, but it is good. It's something that is good, and that's why the smiles are so great.
Minister Parag, what has the feedback been like from the staff at your ministry and those you would have interacted with ever since the announcement?
Right. So early this morning, I was greeted by my own staff, and they were quite happy. A number of them expressed, and as a matter of fact, the call started since last night. A number of them expressed their thanks to the government. Although we are aware that this is not a favor, but an obligation, and they do deserve a salary increase, and that is exactly what His Excellency contemplated and did. And as Minister Edghill said, that we incrementally from last year to this year, and even in 2020, in the midst of the pandemic and in the midst of coming into government after that entire period of our democracy being threatened, coming into a government within an entire pandemic, having to source vaccines and all of that, expending huge sums of money to be able to fight and have our people survive the pandemic. Public servants were able to benefit still from a one-off cash grant of $25,000 in December. And you're talking about just about $1 billion as well. You had the joint services bonus at the end of the year being restored to them in 2020, which they were quite grateful for. And I know that most people, most of the joint services, if not all, they look forward, and they usually would look forward to that. Now, our government stated from the inception that the welfare of the people and the well-being of our Guyanese people is paramount. And so we stopped at nothing in terms of programs and policies to include all Guyanese across our 10 administrative regions. The public servants are no less. They have benefited from all of the programs and policies of government. So again, this one targets specifically public servants. And of course, we have to do that because they are a category of our people. So.
For those persons you mentioned, some of them are doing the calculations and mentally spending already. A lot of them are asking on social media the question, is it tax-free?
No, it's not tax-free, as all of us who would be gaining from the increase, and that's across the board, doesn't matter what position you hold, except for the minimum, of course, of the salary. We know the minimum, they don't pay taxes. However, the rest of the scales, yes, it will be taxed.
It will be a part of your annual income.
So
after the free pay,
in
totality, that percentage will have to be taxed.
Minister Edghill, you mentioned earlier persons were not asking if they would get, but rather how much they would be getting. This really speaks of their confidence in government and their belief that their needs will be taken care of.
People have expectations of the PPPC government. You know, years ago when it was budget time, people used to actually go and start buying and hoarding because budgets meant increase in prices. The PPPC came to government, and we changed that. People, budget day is announced, nobody is stockpiling because they have been assured and they have received the confidence, no new taxes, things are not going up. All of that changed. 2015 onwards, you had VAT on electricity, VAT on water, VAT on 200 food items, increases in fines and fees and licenses, everything. So people had gotten back into, oh God, budget. At the end of the year, you're keeping your fingers crossed. Nobody wanted to say anything because remember, the way people speak now freely on social media and that newfound freedom of speech didn't exist in Guyana 2015 to 2020. People spoke in whispers because of the fear that was in the society. When we came to government in 2020, in that emergency budget, and we start fulfilling the commitments we made to the people by removing VAT on all these items, reversing the fees, the water charges for the drainage and irrigation, and for the farmers, land rentals, we started with people develop. these people are going to keep their word. President Ali made it clear he's going to be a president that takes care of all the people of Guyana. Under his presidency, the lives of people will be improved. Guyana will be better. And people are saying, right, we hear you. It's just how much we're getting at this time and how much we... So it's not if. The if factor has disappeared. It's how fast we could get this done. How much we're getting now as compared to what happened before. Yeah. And the people of Ghana could be assured that as a government, we will do everything that is humanly possible with the help and wisdom of God to make the lives of our people better. You know, it's the joy of a government that they could satisfy the citizenry. That's how you remain in government. So governments are not supposed to punish people. So when people ask me, when you're going to do my road, it's not if you're going to do my road, it's when. You have to say to them, somebody got to get served first, second, third. In any home, even if you're serving dinner, somebody gets the first plate, somebody gets the second plate. And you have to be able to move according to priorities and all the rest of it. There are some people who believe that public servant salary should probably be increased by 100%. They're ridiculous. You've been hearing all kinds of views. And those are the very same people, when they had an opportunity to do something to improve the lot of public servants, they did not do it. As a matter of fact, public servants were becoming pauperized again. 2020, when the PPPC came into office, it lifted that burden off of their shoulders. And they were able to start breathing again. And people saw an opportunity, and the word that you've used, that I think we should repeat it. They started having confidence that there is a government in place that will take care of them, that will put in place fiscal policies, fiscal measures that will benefit them. Their lives will be economically advanced. There's hope. There's future. You could imagine Regent Street, Water Street, Georgetown is congested and busy already. And the money and payout.
Yeah.
Big shopping is taking place. I think His Excellency received the report that he shared with us as members of the cabinet. The level of activity in terms of commerce over the last period have significantly increased, and that's good. When people are spending, it shows that they have confidence. They're not going to drop and left in a hole. Things are going to work for them. People are making investments. People are improving their houses, they're expanding, they're doing everything to improve themselves, because we have been saying that wave of prosperity that will come to Guyana, everybody must benefit. And it is the kind of fiscal policies that are being administered by His Excellency and his cabinet that is ensuring, whether it's miners, people in forestry, fisher folk, the disabled, the youth, women, public servants, pensioners. Just go across the board and you will see how things are being managed to ensure that none is left behind.
As we head into the holiday season, sorry, Minister Parag, you were about to...
No, I was just about to say that imagine if we did not, from the inception, take off those taxes that were so draconian and so oppressive, those taxes on food and every other item that were basic needs. If we didn't take them off and you gave an 8% increase, how would that have made sense? So government took measures from the inception to reduce and ensure that disposable income was put into the pockets of all Guyanese. And today we continue to do that with the incremental increases that we're giving in salaries.
And just to remind you, all these public servants who are benefiting from the 8%, they also got support for their children to get back to school. $30,000 per child, which they did not have during the period 2015-2020, until we got into office in 2020. They didn't have that. That was removed. All of the public servants that are benefiting from the 8%, they were able to buy their data without paying VAT. The VAT on their electricity and the VAT on their water was removed. So they were paying less to receive the same service that they were receiving when the APNU AFC was in office. But the same public servants, their children who are in school, they're benefiting from the breakfast and school feeding program, which is funded by the government. The same public servant, when they go to the Georgetown Hospital, they are meeting doctors. They can get now their CT scans and ultrasound free. Normally, they would have had to go elsewhere and pay for it. Government is ensuring that the build out of the new hospitals, it means that your 8% is money that you could use for yourself, because government is ensuring that your health care is taken care of, the educational needs of your children is taken care of. The public servant would have to be saving their money to pay for overseas university to do a course. Goal is providing scholarships for them. Many of them are at the master's level. I've met a lot of people in Region 10 who smiling, telling me they're pursuing their master's degree, and that's good. This is what government does. It's holistic. It's futuristic in its planning. And it's sensible in its policies to make sure it is sustainable. You don't just make people get a feel good, but it must be sustainable, and you must be able to move along in such a way that development is sustained.
As we head to the holidays and eventually the end of the year, another expectation that Guyanese have from this administration, they are getting accustomed to seeing the budget presentation in the previous year, before the new year that is being budgeted for. What can you say about the representation and provisions that will be made for the working population in that budget?
So we haven't finalized all the budget plans as yet and to head to Parliament. However, every year in a specific line item in the Ministry of Finance's fiscal structure, there is money that caters towards employment. It caters for different forms of employment. It caters for salary increases for public servants. So there is always a pre-thought. They're always considered at the point of budget and not after. And budget always includes a portion for salary increases under this government.
Minister Edghill, would you like to add anything to that?
No, Minister Parag has stated the fact. Under the line item adjustments of wages and salaries, it caters for new people who are employed during the year and taking care of improving benefits to public servants, and that has been our style of budgeting, and we have not changed that. Currently, in all of the agencies, regions, and statutory bodies, the Ministry of Finance has been engaging them in budget meetings, going through the numbers, looking at proposed capital expenditure, reviewing current expenditure, making projections to ensure we get numbers that are close to accurate so that we can prepare for 2023 and that fiscal year needs. So we are in the midst of the budget cycle. We are in the midst of the budget cycle.
What can you say about government's long-term plan given the international state of relations and the effect that this has on the economic development of our country?
Well, basically, all the programs and policies that we have been, as a matter of fact, we are almost at 100% on delivering our manifesto promises already.
In 2 years.
In 2 years. And so all programs and policies are catering for each category and every category of Guyanese across the 10 administrative regions. So we can look forward to more consultations. We can look forward to listening to the people. We can look forward to rolling out more initiatives that will take care of the well-being and the welfare of all Guyanese, whether it be youths, whether it be the senior citizens, whether it be public assistance. And you know that the government has been placing special attention and emphasis on women and children, persons with disabilities. So, you know, we are an inclusive government. We practice it. It's not just saying it. So the programs and the policies that are being rolled out, for example, Gold Scholarship caters for everyone above the age of 16. So there is no upward age limit. You can be 17, you can still apply to have an education, a tertiary education or a technical skill. Look at the housing program, for example. The housing program is going into all of the regions, ensuring that a basic and constitutional need of a Guyanese, of a citizen of Guyana is met. You know, they have surpassed their target for every single year of what they would have set out in the manifesto, that is the housing ministry. So our government is working. We're working, not just imposing programs and policies. Not, as a matter of fact, we're not imposing. It's basically from what we would have heard from the people, going on the ground, acting on that, and rolling out our programs and policies according to that. So going forward in the future, that is what we plan to do. We plan to implement programs that have not been yet completely implemented, to finish those, and again, to listen to the people and see what more we can do. Every year, as you have seen with our budget, we have been increasing our budget so that we can transform the lives of all Guyanese, so that we can transform our country, so that we can have prosperity in our country. You know, today I happened to listen, or I overheard someone talking from the opposition about the oppression of public service and public servants with the 8% increase. And I listened to it and I thought to myself that they continue to fool and try to fool their support base by saying to them that this government will not do anything for them. But I want to say to public servants today that though they would have gained from increases from 2015 to 2019, taxes were placed on their backs. So when you gave with one hand, you snatched with the other hand. And there was no upward movement of Guyanese and public servants in particular in terms of their financial status. As soon as we got into office, we removed that, took that burden off, went on to give increases so that they could have money in their pockets. In addition to that, took off the burden of having to pay for a tertiary education for your child, took off the burden of having to go expend to get a huge loan from the bank to build a home. So there were measures putting quality healthcare in healthcare systems in place now so that we can have longevity in our lives, so that we can actually enjoy the necessities and the wants of life.
The administration is also exploring options, which His Excellency promised to announce about later on in the week, for a number of specific categories of public sector employees, which would include the GPF, the prison service, fire service, and a number of healthcare professionals as well. As we look forward to this and we wrap up our conversation this evening, ministers, I thank you for coming, both of you coming long distances this evening to join us, and wishing you well as you go about the execution of your duties, getting everything ready for the next step. Thank you so much. Any final remarks?
I wanted to just mention one thing, that so far in 2022, and this is quite important, Guyana has actually the highest percentage in terms of an increase in salary. Our next door neighbor, Trinidad and Tobago, maintains their position on a 4.1 increase. St. Vincent is at 7% increase over the next 3 years. We have the US with 4 point something increase as well, farther away from home. But we have thought it necessary to take it to a good amount so that Guyanese would be able to still have money to spend, money to take care of their needs and their wants.
Thank you so much, Minister Parag. Minister Edghill, any final words?
Just to reiterate to all of us, government needs the full support, understanding, and cooperation of all the people to make the country better. The PPPC, I've repeatedly said it, might not be perfect, but we are good for Guyana. And we are doing good for Guyana. Minister Parag said it earlier, the 8% is not a favor. It's, you deserve it. But you could only get that if we're able to keep a stable economy, if we're able to ensure that the country is moving forward, we have money that we could pay salaries while we take care of all the other things, and we don't have to be repeating it. So if the country comes under distress because of instability, political instability, or what some people would like to create, monies have to be diverted for increased security, and that is the same money that could have gone to improve the welfare of people. So like the old people say, one hand can't clap. We are doing our best. His Excellency the President, Dr. Mohamed Irfan has been leading from the front. You can see him in every community on a continuous basis. And notice when he goes into those communities, he's not talking in whispers. Wherever you are around the world, you could see it live. So people know what is happening, what he's saying, what the people are saying, and what the engagement is all about. It's not a cardboard president that you take photographs with next to a cardboard. It's someone who you talk to and who touches you, who understands your plight. You look across the country, you could see all of the ministers daily crisscrossing, getting into the various communities, delivering. People want their play fields improved, they want their roads built, they want their hospitals to be more modern, they want job creation, they want street lights, all of that we will do while we also take care of you. And what we need is stability, cooperation, and that is why the President's platform of the One Guyana is so important. It's not just about racial unity and coming together of the people, but it must also be that One Guyana platform where everybody is benefiting economically as well. Because when the tide comes in, all the boats rise. That tide of prosperity that is coming to Guyana, that we are ushering in by prudent fiscal management, it must lift the lives of everyone in the hinterland, the coastland, the teachers, the men and women in uniform, the nurses, the public servants, the frontline workers, everyone. And we are so appreciative that the people of Guyana has given us the opportunity to serve them, and serve them we will. And that's how we see our government, serving the people of Guyana, improving their lives and improving their lot.
And finally, I want to say that the lives of public servants will continue to be enhanced. Government will not only look at a package of an increase, but in the overall welfare of public servants. And what is important to note as well is that when a country has to manage its purse, it has to manage it in a very smart and economical way. So while you may give a cash grant to a specific category of workers, and that is of course to cushion everything that is happening in that particular sector and so on, and to ensure that you hold them up, with public servants, an increase in salary, not public servants necessarily, but increase in salary, wages and salary, it's a different thing. You're looking at a long-term situation. And so if you have a group of persons that fall within 40-something thousand to 50-something thousand, you have to be very economical in the way that you increase salaries, because if something is to happen to any one of the sectors that helps us to earn tomorrow, then what happens? How do we sustain it? How do we sustain it? So sustainability is a big deal. Therefore, when people argue that there should be this amount of increase and a 50% increase as the GPSU called for last year, I don't believe that it is economical, because you have to sustain that. Then next year you still have to give an increase, because the public servants are looking forward to that, because they deserve it for the work that they do. And so we have to look at that aspect of it as well. So, but I want to say to public servants that this is, of course, just one phase, and next year comes again, and we will continue to look after their welfare.
Thank you so much once again, ministers. I'm Nadia Holadar. This has been a discussion on the across-the-board 8% increase in salary as announced by the President, His Excellency Mohamed Irfan Ali, among a number of other measures that have been taken ever since the PPPC got into office to ensure that Guyanese continue to live comfortably.